In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how many carbohydrates you need to be eating down to the actual gram to improve thyroid hormones, improve your metabolism, boost your metabolism, and allow you to eat more food and lose more body fat without having to do any more cardio. So in the video, we're going to go through actual specific scientific case studies on how carbohydrates boost your metabolism, why your body needs carbohydrates to promote healthy digestion, how carbohydrates reduce cortisol and inflammation, how carbohydrates increase serotonin and sleep, and then we're going to be going through step by step the actual formula that I use with each and every single one of my clients to boost their metabolism and get leaner than they ever been, eating more food than they started. So if you guys don't know me by now, my name's Adam Bunnell. I'm an online fat loss professional and I specialize in metabolic science. And so we use a process called metabolic priming, which allows our clients to eat more food and lose more body fat by influencing some certain hormone levels within their body. We've worked with almost 400 men online just in the last few years, and we have over 99% client success rate. We've worked with clients in 7 different countries, and we've worked with clients from 30 years old all the way up to 65 years old as well. So we're going to get right into the study because I want to show you guys exactly how this does work, because I know a lot of you are skeptical, and that's okay. You can be, because I'm here to actually show you the science behind it and how it's possible, and so that you can start doing it yourself. And so just a key warning, I do withhold about 90% of the information in each one of these videos for obviously my paid for clients who receive twice a week group calls, to receive one-on-one check-ins each week, information and education about nutrition and hormonology. And so I do withhold 90% of the information in these videos out of respect for my clients. But I'm here to show you the science, and I'm here to show you how to start, because you will make progress if you listen to this video. So stick around to the end. But anyways, how do carbohydrates really boost your metabolism? So your metabolism comes down to separate quadrants, right? And within these quadrants, they all do specific things. So when you think about your basal metabolic rate, which makes up 67% of your metabolism, this is where we focus with our clients. Your basal metabolic rate is your essential body functions like breathing, blood flow, sleeping, organ function, and then your thermic effective food, which is 10 to 15%, digestion, calorie conversion, and then walking around like neat, non-planned exercise, fidgeting, XYZ, and then you have your exercise activity, where you guys tend to be focused, right? Doing all this cardio, overdoing cardio, creating a bunch of inflammation, creating a bunch of cortisol, extremely tired, fatigued all the time, can barely stay awake. And this is where you're going wrong. You're focusing on the wrong stuff. We are quite literally focused on a higher leverage option within your overall metabolism, which increases the chances of, one, you not having to starve anymore, but also dramatically increases the chances of you actually coming to a sustainable goal. Because where a lot of guys go wrong is they do focus on this, and then they kill their metabolism over time by doing too much cardio and eating too much food, and that's where the weight gain actually comes back from. Because there is a scientific study done that says that most men, 30% of men who lose 30 plus pounds actually keep it off. And after 2 years, that number diminishes to 15%. So you start to think, why are men losing weight? We don't have a weight loss problem. We have a keeping weight off problem. So why are men losing weight and gaining it back? Why are 70, 80% of men losing weight and gaining it back? Because they don't understand the actual science on how you can get to that physique and actually sustain it. Because this is where it comes into play. Understanding basal metabolic rate, metabolic adaptation, and understanding how your metabolism works to put yourself in a place of actual sustainability. So going into kind of the topic around this is that carbohydrates do influence overall thyroid levels, right? They influence a specific hormone called T3. A high carbohydrate diet appears to be associated with a higher T3 levels compared to a very low carbohydrate diet. So imagine if you're eating more calories, but you also have a higher metabolism. How much more comfortable would you be? How much more sustainable is that? Because carbohydrates, along with overall caloric intake, can affect the conversion of T4, inactive thyroid hormone, to T3. Additionally, low-carb diets can impact the production of reverse T3 and inactive form with thyroid. So impact of low-carb diets. Very low-carbohydrate diets like ketogenic diets may reduce T3 levels. Insulin, which is released in response to carbohydrate intake, may play a role in enzymes that convert T4 to T3. And then carbohydrate and thyroid regulation. In general, dietary carbohydrates and overall caloric intake are thought to play a role in regulating thyroid hormones, with carbohydrate intake can potentially be main determinant of T3. So going on to like NEAT, this other 15% that we want to talk about right here, is carbohydrates can indirectly affect NEAT by influencing energy levels. As the body primarily uses carbohydrates for fuel, when you consume sufficient carbohydrates, you have more ready available energy to perform everyday activities. So basically, carbs are the body's main fuel source of energy, meaning adequate carb intake can support higher activity levels and increased NEAT T3. Basically what this is saying is that like when you have more energy, you're more likely to walk around, you're more likely to fidget, you're more likely to move around. When you guys are starving yourselves on low carb diets, what's the first thing you do when you get home? You just hit the couch and you pass out because you don't have the energy. With higher carbohydrate diets, you have the energy to do everyday activities, which one, if we're focusing on NEAT and we're focusing on basal metabolic rate, notice now that within our clients, we are focused on 85% of your overall metabolism because we're focused on NEAT and we're focused on basal metabolic rate. So how much more likely from a statistic perspective and just overall data perspective are you to maintain and lose weight and get to a shredded physique if we are focusing on the right things instead of the wrong things, right? So moving on how carbohydrates affect and promote healthy digestion, because obviously when it does come to your metabolism, digestion is extremely important, breaking down digestion, because it's the first process of your metabolism, right? How your body breaks down food is how your body utilizes calories from the breakdown food. So carbohydrates influence digestion by providing fuel for the process and impacting how quickly other foods are digested. They're broken down to glucose by primary source, yes. Carbohydrates are the body's main source of energy during digestion. They are broken down to glucose, which is used with cells for various functions. So reduction of inflammation and cortisol as well from just not having a interrupted digestive process. So carbohydrates play a crucial role in digestion. They promote energy, promote regularity, they feed gut microbiomes, they slow down digestion, and benefits of carbohydrates for risk of constipation even. So it's important to note, consume a variety amount of carbohydrates, but overall, like the healthy bacteria from carbohydrates and the energy that carbohydrates produce allow you a much easier digestive process. So next is coming into the how carbohydrates reduce cortisol inflammation, is that carbohydrates is directly correlated to overall cortisol levels. Low carbohydrate diets, especially those very low in carbohydrates like keto diets, can trigger stress response, potentially leading to increased levels of cortisol. This is because the body may need to produce more cortisol to generate glucose for alternative sources when carbohydrate is limited. So a lot of guys who comment on my channel, they're like, well, your body will create carbohydrates and glucose from other places. Well, what happens when your body does that is that cortisol is also increased, right? Which cortisol is a very bad hormone when it comes to fat loss, because cortisol will quite literally prohibit fat loss. And so we don't want that happening. So along with that, insulin resistance. So chronic stress and elevated cortisol can impair insulin sensitivity, leading to higher blood sugar levels, increased fat storage, especially around the abdomen. So you guys who do these very low carb diets and you have very stressful jobs and you're trying to push through it and do more cardio because you think that's the answer to your problem, is that you're putting yourself in a worse position for insulin sensitivity and excess gain fat around the abdomen. So cortisol can influence where fat is stored, potentially favoring abdomen. Cortisol has an anti-inflammatory properties, but prolonged elevation can lead to inflammation, which can negatively impact metabolism and potentially contribute to weight gain. So inflammation can disrupt metabolic processes, making it harder to lose. Inflammation can also be a byproduct of chronic stress, which is elevated cortisol. So a lot of guys who come to us who have very high intense jobs, because we work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, fighter pilots, Delta airliner pilots, travel doctors, anything in between. These guys have high levels of stress from their overall work. So psychological and physiological stress are the same thing when it does come to overall stress levels. They produce the same amount of cortisol. So if your cortisol levels are extremely high, then your body will not only restrict you from losing fat, but it'll also start to put fat in the wrong places where you get the quote-unquote cortisol gut. Then carbohydrates increase serotonin in sleep. So carbohydrates increase the levels of serotonin, the happiness hormone. So you guys who stressed all the time, these low-carb diets, and you get cranky because you're hungry, it's because carbohydrates increase the happiness in your brain. They can increase serotonin. And when you have more serotonin, you have more deeper sleep. You have better digestion. You have improvement of mental focus. And so if you're a high-performing individual in the workspace, you need carbohydrates to focus, to mentally prepare, to be able to handle stressful moments when they do come. come. And carbohydrates are the key mechanism behind that. So carbohydrates can influence serotonin levels in the brain, impacting mood, sleep, and appetite. This connection stems from the fact that carbohydrates, particularly those that trigger insulin release, can facilitate the transport of tryptophan, an amino acid and serotonin precursor, into the brain where it's converted to serotonin. So anyways, behind all that, now we got all out of the way, what's most important now is you guys want to know how many carbohydrates you should eat. So a caveat behind this is that I can give you the starting macros for these, and it will work for the first 2 weeks, but there needs to be adjustments, right? You need to know how to adjust these carbohydrates, when to adjust these carbohydrates, and the key bodily triggers in your body that means that you do need more carbohydrates. And so that's particularly what we do teach of our clients is understanding bodily cues, when to eat more carbohydrates, when your body needs more carbohydrates, when we're reaching a certain level of a threshold within lactate, and so we need more carbohydrates to reduce lactate. So I can give you the starting macros, but a caveat is that this will work for the first few weeks, but eventually there'll need to be a change, and you need to understand what to change. And particularly, it does vary just based upon each individual because each individual is different. Each individual's body transitions different. Each individual needs certain different macronutrients based upon your overall cortisol and inflammation. And so like there's sometimes clients come to us and we increase them 100 carbohydrates within the first 2 weeks. Sometimes it's only 50. Sometimes it's only 25. And so it all depends on how your body does respond. So just a caveat behind that. But obviously that information is withheld for my in-person clients or my online clients that do pay for our program. So anyways, let's get your starting macros though. So track all your calories for the first 3 days straight. I'm going to break this down to you very simply. Just 3 days straight, you can use MyFitnessPal, whatever you want to use. 3 days straight, track your calories, right? Add up all those calories tracked. And so this is what it looked like. Day 1, you ate 1,500 calories. Day 2, you ate 1,800. Day 3, you ate 2,000. You eat 5,300 calories within a 3-day period. And just a caveat, this is very low, all right? And the reason I put this is this is typically what our clients come to us. The very low-calorie dieters who are stuck under 2,000 calories, starving, cranky, and have terrible energy levels. So, like, if you are under 2,000 calories, that should be a red flag as of right now. There's no man listening to this right now that should be under 2,000 calories. So, divide days by days tracked, 5,300 divided by 3. So, your average caloric intake is now 1,770, okay? So, write that down, write your average caloric intake. Now we get the starting protein goal. So protein goal is calculated by 1 to 1.2 times your body weight. And I know a lot of guys are like, well, that sounds like a lot. Well, there's certain scientific studies done on a higher protein goal that it works similar to an over-counter fat burner. It's because of the thermic effect of it, right? The higher the protein goal, the more thermic effect that your body has. So like breaking down thermic effect of food, protein has a 30%, fat has a 3%, and then carbohydrates have a 10%. So a higher protein diet works like an over-the-counter fat burner because of the overall, thermic effect of the food it is. So anyways, you take your body weight, 1 to 1.2. If you've been eating and you track your calories and you're eating like 100 grams of protein, start at 1. If you've been eating close to your body weight and protein, start at 1.2, right? So in this model, we're using a 175-pound male. If you've been eating 150 grams of protein, you're probably fine starting at 210. But if you've been eating 100 to 120, start at just 1, and you can work that up when your body's ready. So 210 grams of protein would be the goal right here. Step 3, starting fat goal. So body weight times 0.3. So we use a lower fat goal because lower fat goal allows us to have more carbohydrates, and carbohydrates store less body fat. So there's a study done called de novo lipogenesis in men where they overfed humans macronutrients, right? And what they were trying to find is what specific macromolecules stored the most amount of body fat. Was it protein? Was it carbs? Was it fat? And so what they found was that carbohydrates are less likely to store as body fat as opposed to fat, which is more likely to store as body fat. So just based upon that data, we know with a lower fat intake and a higher carbohydrate intake that your body will store less body fat. So in this example, 175-pound male, 0.3 is 52 grams of fat. So if your current fat is way, way higher than 60 or 52 grams, let's say like 80 or 90, start at 60. I like to start my fat goals with my clients right on the 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 mark. I don't like to do anything in between. I like to start them right at like the 10 mark within overall fat intake. So if current fat intake is way higher, start at 60. If you're under 52 grams, you're at 40, you're at 30, start lower. But to be honest, there's nobody that's listening to this channel that should be under 40 grams of fat, because fat is a very misunderstood molecule itself. It does tailor to digestion, but more importantly, it does tailor to hormones. If you undereat on fat, you have hormonal-related issues. If you overeat on fat, you will have hormonal-related issues. So do never go below 40, 45 grams of fat. And if your body weight is lower and it comes at 0.3, comes out to 40 or 45, start at 50, okay? Anyway, so this will get you at 60 grams of fat, right? So step 4, backfill the rest with carbs to meet starting calories. So starting protein times 0.4 or times 4, right? So there's 4 calories per gram in protein. So if your starting protein goal is 210, times that by 4, and now you get 840 calories to start, right? That's your calories from protein. Starting fat times 9 equals 60 times 9, right? So starting fat 60, there's 9 calories per gram in fat. So now you have 540 calories from your fat goal. So next, what I want you to do is I want you to add up both calorie amounts from protein and fats. So what this does come to is, it comes to, I think this is actually supposed to be an 80. I got that wrong. Excuse me. But anyways, it should be right around 840 plus 540, which is 1380 calories from protein and fats. So this is the total calories from the protein and fats that you're eating, right? So now what you want to do, and I'll actually do this for you live right here while I'm fixing this. Anyways, you want to start at starting calories, and you want to start the calories and minus them from the starting calories of protein and fats, right? So 1,700 calories is your starting calories, and then 1,380 is the calories from fats and protein, right? So if you divide, right, if you minus that, let me do this calculation for you right off the bat. So 1,770 is minus 1,380 equals 390, right? So 390. So what you do is take 390, divide that by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram in carbohydrates. So divided by 4, so you get like 97. So you could, 100 is fine to start off with. But if your carbs are at 100, they are low, right? My clients are eating almost 300 to 500 grams of carbohydrates per day, and they're down 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds. So like, this is a good starting point, because the thing is that you don't want to start carbohydrates too high, because if you start them too high from where you're already at calorically wise, that's when you will gain fat rapidly, right? It takes the body some time to transition and to adjust to calories, right? And so that's why we needed to be able to take this slow, and that's why we need to match the calories that you're currently consuming with new macronutrients. And so although this is a very, very low carbohydrate diet, you should be wanting to get this up to about 340 grams a day, right? So to prime your metabolism fully, slowly get your carbs up to 300 to 400 grams a day. But the caveat is, if you do this wrong, you will gain fat, because your body takes time to adjust. Your body takes time to transition. If you go too quick and you add carbohydrates when your body's not ready for it, you will gain weight, right? Because it's going to start to put that excess carbohydrates away as stored energy. And we obviously don't want that. And we want to make sure that our glucose receptors, our insulin sensitivity is in check. And that's all stuff that we do for our clients with adding supplementation, like glucose management, thyroid help, digestive help, sleep help. And so it just varies within each individual how your body's responding, if you need a certain set of supplementation like vitamins and minerals to successfully get you there, right? Because obviously everybody needs a certain set of carbohydrates, but there is certain cases where we try to raise carbohydrates a little and there's an adverse reaction within the body, and we know that we need to maybe add like a thyroid support vitamin on top of that as well, which is stuff that we consult with our clients and we tell them to take. But anyways, and to kind of show you what this looks like successfully, I'm going to show you. These are some of my clients that have came to me and are down 30, 40, 2 of them are down 100 pounds. Eating more food, right? So 50 grams of carbohydrates versus 325, 175 grams of carbohydrates versus 350, 150 grams of carbohydrates versus 300, 200 grams of carbohydrates versus 375, under 50 grams of carbohydrates versus 400 grams, and then under 100 grams of carbohydrates versus 275. So these are before and afters of adding more carbohydrates, right? Because this is a science, and it does come down to a process of understanding how your body works and bodily cues that you need to be looking for. And obviously, as coaches, that's what we come in and we do. We monitor you each week based upon how your body's reacting, based upon certain key factors like energy, digestion, strength in the gym, even down to like how well you sleep, right? And so all that does come into play. But this will help you make the initial progress for the first few weeks. But if you want the higher level guidance and you're somebody who has been struggling with these low carb ketogenic diets the fitness industry has shoved down your throat for so long, there will be an application down below for you to sign up for a time to see if it's a great fit for you to work with us. We'll sit down, we'll see exactly where you're at, show you exactly what it would look like for you, and if it's a great fit, then we'll show you what the program will look like from you getting into the program, because everything that we do is very customized to each individual. And like I said within these videos, that I do withhold about 90% of the information for my in-person, my actual paid for clients. So with that being said, if you are interested, 2 twice a week group calls, one check-in per week, custom macronutrients, custom training, one-on-one help and guidance, meal planning, everything in between. So if you're somebody who does need the extra help and that extra level set of guidance, there'll be an application down below. There'll be a short little video describing what the program is, and if it's a great fit, we'll get you rocking. So hope you like this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.